Hello, everybody. I'm Wes Blankenship. This is the DawgsHQ YouTube channel. Georgia beat South Carolina 24-14. It was a tight one early on in this game at halftime. I think I wasn't the only one wondering if Georgia was going to be able to flip the switch and come out victorious here. And whatever Kirby Smart said at halftime, it's not safe for work. I wonder if anyone's got a recording of it because I'd pay good money to hear it. Georgia gets the win 24-14, shuts South Carolina out in the second half. Spencer Rattler opened up the first half with about 150 yards passing, and in the second half, he threw 2 picks. So it was a tale of two halves for Georgia. Kirby Smart said on the radio call coming into the game that he wasn't sure how his team would react to facing a team like South Carolina that had been tested. They played a 4-quarter ball game against UNC, and Georgia still hasn't played a 4-quarter game, I don't think, because this game starting out was not the best showing in the first half. Georgia trailing 14-3 at halftime. So you don't expect that from South Carolina. You certainly expected to have better movement, better pressure against that O-line that gave up 1 million sacks against North Carolina and didn't look much better against Furman. So there's still a lot to be desired from Georgia coming out of this one. Big injury story in the game. Amarius Mims left in the first half, I believe, with could be an ankle injury. We'll check on that. We'll hear from Kirby Smart here in a few minutes. And Palmer Thompson, Jake Rowe will be all over that, covering it for DawgsHQ.com. Rusty Manziel is going to join in a moment. He is in Athens as well, between the hedges. So a lot to break down here. My instant thoughts here, I don't want to overreact. I want to take some time and take a look at this game again. But when you saw Georgia's defense come out and let South Carolina go right down the field, I think that first drive was huge. It took the crowd out of the game until they could start to believe again a little bit later. But Georgia wasn't sending a ton of pressure after Rattler. They were kind of, in the first half, inviting him to have a little bit of time. And with Javon Bullard being injured, since he was out for this one. So early on in the game, I think South Carolina gave Georgia everything it wanted and more. And offensive impressive drives on Georgia. And after that, in the second half, Georgia ratcheted things up, got some pressure. Michael Williams made himself known to Spencer Rattler back there, and it was just a different ball game. And Georgia seemed to play it a little bit differently. But that's just instantly coming off this game a few minutes after it ended. I have to go back and watch it and see what was going on there. Rusty Manziel is going to join. Rusty, appreciate you coming on. Just kind of giving my immediate thoughts right after this one. 2014, Georgia the winner. What was the tale of two halves for you? What did you see Georgia do differently in the second half that wasn't necessarily working in the first half? I don't think Rusty can hear me. I'll get him on in a moment. Make sure I'm on here. Rusty, can you hear me? So with Georgia being a 28-point favorite, I think people, myself included, I expected Georgia to cover in this one, mainly because of the pressure situation. And that didn't really materialize until later on in the game. But it seemed like Georgia started to play defense a little bit differently. Now, on offense, a lot of people frustrated with Mike Bobo. I think it took a little bit of time for Carson Beck to feel like he could throw downfield a little bit. Rusty, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. So I asked you earlier, I don't think you could hear me. So it was a tale of two halves for Georgia, Rusty. What are some fire here that you noticed that Georgia did differently or better in the second half that wasn't working in the first half? I think you're muted. We'll get Rusty on here. He'll figure it out. But it was a change. Now, the positives for Georgia's offense was Dejon Edwards hit the 100-yard mark today. Dylan Bell was also fantastic when he was called upon. Brock Bowers didn't have a huge impact statistically, but he was blocking a lot and doing that really well. And anytime that guy gets the ball, he's going to pick up at least 3 to 5 extra yards that people don't expect him to get. So Georgia's offense did some things a lot better in the second half. I understand the frustration, though. First half there, the ball was not really moving too far beyond the sticks. A lot of short plays underneath. The run game was taking some time to get going. And I think Georgia got a little bit looser as the game went on and started to feel in control of the game. Rusty, give me a mic check. See if I can hear you. No. All right. Don't worry about it, man. Follow Rusty at Rusty Manziel. If he can hop on here, we'll take him. But I think Kirby's about to speak, so Rusty might need to bounce out in a minute anyway. So statistically speaking, what you had from Spencer Rattler today was pretty impressive. He was a playmaker early on in the game, but as the game went on and the pressure got to him, he ended up finishing the day 22 of 37, under 300 yards passing, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. And you need to have elite quarterback play to beat Georgia. It's just what you need. It's a non-negotiable. And Rattler was delivering that a little bit early on in the game. He was really picking apart Georgia's defense and frustrating them, getting some big running plays on them. But then as the game went on and Georgia controlled this thing a little bit more and looked like the championship defense we're used to seeing, I think they settled in a little bit. Now, I don't know how much of that had to do with Javon Bullard being out and Georgia figuring some things out. I know Dan Jackson missed a tackle on South Carolina's first touchdown, which was like a 3rd and 16. And he rebounded well and got a pick. So that's 2 interceptions in Dan Jackson's career, both of them at the expense of Spencer Rattler. Let's take some comments here. Y'all want to fire Mike Bobo? This is embarrassing. South Carolina always plays Georgia hard. I don't think this was an embarrassing game. I think it was an embarrassing start to a game because Georgia has way better players, has a much better roster than South Carolina does. That's not a question. That's not up for debate. And they were coming into your house and opening a can on you and took the crowd totally out of the game. I thought Georgia's fans would show up and be ready to go, much like they were against Arkansas a couple years ago and against Tennessee last season. So I understand that when you see Mike Bobo's offense, let's just focus in on that, okay? Me on my couch watching the game and not having the advantage to rewatch it, I'm getting blown up by my friends, getting blown up on our message board. Why is it just screen, run the ball when it's not working? And maybe they did stick with it a little too long. I'm not saying it was the 100% right thing to do to win this game, but it ended up paying off later on when Carson Beck was actually able to take some deep shots and see some guys that were open. Again, I was getting a lot of comments on our message board thread and in my text messages about Carson Beck seeing guys or not seeing guys that were wide open down the field. I didn't see that per se on any given play, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. I was watching a lot of line of scrimmage stuff today, and we'll need to take another look at that. But Carson Beck did open up. He did get confident. And when he really does put his foot into the ball, when he really does step into the throw, he can hammer it, man. And he was putting it in some tight windows and threw some really pretty balls today. So some ups, some downs. Georgia's offensive line not getting a ton of push up the middle early on in the game, but you saw them kind of beat up on South Carolina's front seven and start to have a little bit more pop. Let's go back to Daijun Edwards, though. We spoke about Georgia's rushing attack ad nauseum for the last couple weeks, wondering who was going to step up, how was it going to happen, was it going to be Kendall Milton, was it going to have to be Roderick Robinson, who left the game, by the way, and was a little gimpy after his single carry, so we'll keep an eye on that. But we said that Daijun Edwards, who is overlooked often by maybe the national pundits and maybe some Georgia fans themselves, the diminutive one in Georgia's backfield, well, he came in and was the electric spark, the lightning rod, whatever you want to use, whatever analogy you want to use. That's what he was for the Dogs. And he stepped up and made some big plays, made people miss, made things happen that maybe weren't there, by their own merit. And that was something that Georgia's running backs were kind of struggling to do. So I think when you see Dajon Edwards step up, do what he did today, that is really encouraging for Georgia's offense, and it's going to be huge down the line. How much do you miss Ladd McConkey, though? You see a game like this, you think Dogs got to travel to Auburn in a couple weeks. They start out slow like that in that hornet's nest, and we don't know what time kickoff's going to be yet. You start off slow there, good luck. I don't care how good you are. That's going to be a tough one. Paul Derringer said we did a lot without Mims. I agree. And I also agree with your point to stop with the Monken comparisons. It's a different team. The fact that Georgia did a lot without Mims is a testament to the Dogs recruiting. I know Monroe Freeling came in there, but look, you're going to want depth throughout the year, and Mims is arguably the best offensive lineman you got. So any way you slice it, that's a tough loss. Dylan Bell has to be moved to running back. RKD says, well, maybe on certain plays, but he's still a pretty big threat as a receiver. I know that y'all want to move on from the Monken era, but Monken evaluated that guy and said the fact that this kid can play receiver is pretty scary. So he's made it work across the field. Who's to say he's not a Deebo Samuel type of player to go in there and do what he can no matter what, no matter where they put him. Christopher Black saying deflecting much. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. I don't know. Pretty much addressed everything that y'all have had concerns about. So if you could clarify that, I'd love to answer it. Kendall's never going to stay healthy, according to all Freddie Brooks. Yeah, he got banged up again. It's not an indictment on him. Some guys just get hurt more. Injuries destroying us. I'll say this, guys. Georgia's too deep to use injuries as an excuse, barring an entire wave of position groups going down, entire starting lineup going down. Georgia's too deep. Now, they showed it today that it's not always going to be easy. You're not going to dominate everybody, but you should still beat most of the people on your schedule, even with the injuries you have right now. And that's a really scary thing. But I don't think Georgia fans want to use injuries as an excuse long term. Let's just see how this thing plays out. Some other teams have had some injuries, and Georgia didn't want to hear their excuses about injuries either. So that street works both ways. And I know that there's a lot of injuries across the field, but look, you got the win. It wasn't as easy as you thought it was going to be, but you still have the luxury of resting Ladd McConkey and still coming out with the win here. And yeah, you didn't cover, but you turn it on in the second half, and I do see Carson Beck getting more comfortable as the game goes on. Did he miss some stuff today? Yeah. Did he have some issues with the play clock? Absolutely. And he's got to get those cleaned up. Still just his third start, though. So I'm not going to overreact and say it's Brock Vandagriff's time. I think you still got to give Beck the shot. Lean in, let him see what he can do. And when he is prepared and when he is ready and when he's comfortable, he does it. This is his first SEC start. A lot of firsts for this guy still. So I think you got to give the guy a little bit more time. Be a little bit more patient. I know the three-peat is on the line, and you want to see Georgia blow everybody out right away. But this was never going to be automatic, guys. Replacing a quarterback, replacing an offensive coordinator in the same season, losing Darnell Washington to the NFL draft. You're using Brock Bowers in a lot of different ways, guys. You know, Brock Bowers is being leaned on as a blocker in this game. Go back and watch it and see how many times, you know, he was in there with the big uglies on Georgia's offensive line, helping seal things off. He's a little bit limited in that role. He can't be a threat every single play because Georgia's leaning on him then. So the offense looks different. It's a different offense this year. It's going to run differently, and that's what we're seeing. The most important thing is that you have things on tape now. You won the game, and now you've got UAB to tune things up a little bit before you go on the road and take on Auburn. So all in all, was it the game that Georgia fans wanted to see? No way. Was it the game that Georgia coaches wanted to see? Not in the first half, it wasn't. And I think even in the second half, you left a lot to be desired out there. So Georgia certainly has a lot to clean up. The high notes, Dajon Edwards, Cash Jones, Dylan Bell, Brock Bowers, those guys were absolute dogs. And how about Tyke Smith getting the pick and Dan Jackson, Mykel Williams, Darius Smith getting some good pressure. Nazir Stackhouse on Spencer Rattler as the game went on. Smile Munden had a great game. And try to pull up the defensive stats here. You got to find a kicker, though, and that is a probably concern number behind Mims for me. I'd say the kicker is the number 2 concern for Georgia right now. Those misses were not just like in the bad, miskicked. They were in the wrong zip code. So I don't know if Woodring's got the yips, but Georgia's got to figure it out. I'm not even saying you bench him just yet, but this is going to be a hard week for him. Matthew C. says it's coaching and play calling negligence not to scheme Bowers into the game. Monken could and did do it with teams trying to take him away. Why can't Bobo? Well, look, maybe he can. I still think the season is young, guys. And I think that you're missing a lot. You're missing McConkey. You're trying to figure out how to use Oscar Delp while Brock Bowers is on the field. And with Mims going down today, I mean, you might see Brock Bowers blocking a little bit more too. I don't know if they've got Brock on a pitch count. I know he's a little, banged up day to day. Everybody is. Nothing serious. He still got out there and still delivered some blows, but he's taking them too. So I don't know if they've got Brock on a pitch count or what, but Georgia is spreading the ball around. And that's what Georgia's identity on offense has always been. For as much as we want to say that, Brock wasn't schemed enough, he had 7 catches today. That's tied for the team lead. Marcus Rosmi Jack Saint had 6 catches. Brock Bowers also had a carry. And Brock Bowers got his shots in the game. You're just not used to seeing it. You're used to seeing him be a little bit more impactful. That's what I would say. But again, hiccups, man. It's growing pains. They're going to figure it out. I do believe. This one wasn't fun, but you got to be impressed. You got to be thrilled with the fact that Georgia, again, down double-digit points. They were down double digits at Mizzou last season, came back and won. And they used that game as motivation for the Peach Bowl. They looked back, they reflected on that, and while they were in the game, to a man, speaking to Cedric Van Pran, speaking to Smile Munden, speaking to Pop Dumas Johnson, they all pointed back to that Missouri game last season and said, we learned a lot about ourselves in that game, and it revealed a lot of our character. Did this game reveal Georgia's character and inspire them to come out of the gates a lot quicker in every single game? Maybe. Or did this game just tell us a lot about who Georgia really is? Maybe that's the case too. But they can't keep playing with their food. They haven't proven to me this year yet that they can play with their food and still be all right, because they haven't played a full game yet. It's like I said, South Carolina played a full game against UNC. They've gotten tested, and they might go on to have a pretty good year if they can, figure out how to keep Spencer Rattler out of the dirt. But Georgia showed you some things that they can still have that resolve to go out there and win. A lot of teams might not have done that. A lot of teams might have folded, and Georgia didn't. Christopher Black saying that you think Bobo worked with Monken. He did last season, and then Monken took the job to go coach for the Ravens. It's a win, and that's what counts. Amen, dog man. Look, we don't know what this team's supposed to be yet. I know what the standard of Georgia's football program is, and that is to dominate everybody from whistle to whistle. They didn't do that today. Towards the end of the first half, South Carolina was dominating the Dogs. Georgia looked like they didn't want any part of the Gamecocks. And I will credit Georgia for coming out and looking like a totally different team. I mean, they were totally different. Beck looked more comfortable. They were getting more rushing yards. They were getting more blow up off the line of scrimmage. The defense was locking them down, shut them out in the second half. So that is the most impressive thing to me about today. Maybe not a statistical thing. Dejan Edwards was the most impressive thing on offense. I think on defense, Dalen Everett was all over the field. He had some blow-ups. He had a few missed opportunities, but you're getting called on when your secondary's kind of all in a jumble without Javon Bullard. Smile Munden was all over the field too. Tyke Smith, 5 total tackles and a pick. So look, there's a lot to look at. There's a lot to see that's positive, and there's still a lot to see when you watch that film again and watch this game over, if you do. Even in the second half, they missed some opportunities. So we'll see what Georgia does from here. If y'all have any other questions, let me know. The DBs are our strongest group: Tyke, Dan, Kamari, and Starks. Yeah, they were a little shaky today, though. I think it was something about the way that South Carolina was running the offense kind of close to the line of scrimmage. They had some weird blocking schemes set up, and it kind of got Georgia's secondary out of position a little bit. Christopher Black says you didn't see any evidence of Monken in the play calling. I mean, I saw some similar stuff, some similar ideas. Doesn't mean that – look, it doesn't mean that Bobo is going to run it carbon copy. And, guys, it also doesn't mean that Carson Beck is running it perfectly. There's a chance that Bobo laid some things out there and Beck just didn't see them. That's what y'all were telling me. So someone's got to make up their mind. Was it Mike Bobo calling a terrible game, or was it Carson Beck missing guys that were wide open? Which one was it? Because I've heard both from a lot of y'all now. It can't be both. And if it is both, then I don't think Georgia would have won. So it's got to be one of the two. So I think Georgia's got to figure that out and see what Carson Beck can do now that he's got a few games under his belt. You got a lot to coach him up on. You got a lot of film. Just go out there and play, man. Georgia's been good through these first 3 games, but the coaches have to figure out how to get a great game out of these dogs, according to Jason Jackson. I think that's the story of the season so far. Georgia's playing with its food because it can. Today, it almost cost you a game. Well, through the first half, it looked like it might cost you the game. And then you flip the switch. So I'm impressed, man, with that ability. With this team's ability to do it. It says a lot, shows a lot about Georgia's culture and about what Kirby Smart's been able to do to get these guys to not quit. He told Jenny Dell at halftime, we're going to take it one play at a time. And that's the most cliche coaching thing you can ever hear, but it worked. And Georgia listened and responded, and they got a win because of it. Depth is our blessing, according to Henry Majors. Yes, Georgia fans, thank the Lord for all that good recruiting, not just at the 4- and 5-star level, but also getting walk-on guys like Mekhi Muse, who had a big tackle on special teams today, Cash Jones, Dan Jackson. I mean, Georgia's walk-on you. Dogs had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different guys catch passes today. That's a hallmark of a Todd Monken offense. Distribute the ball to a bunch of different players. Dominic Lovett tied with Brock Bowers for the most catches with 7, 56 yards for him. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint had a beautiful catch, ran a great route, and Carson Beck hit him in stride. And you're seeing glimpses. You're seeing evidence that Carson Beck can get locked in, and he can hit these guys when they're wide open. He's just not consistent with it. So doesn't mean he can't figure it out. Chad Donnerschwan says that Georgia is Chad U. I think you're a little biased on that one, Chad, just declaring that. Just because your name is Chad doesn't mean that it's Chad U. But I like your avatar. Shirtless dude on the moon with the frog, it looks like, in the helmet. You're one of my favorite commenters, Chad. All right, guys. If y'all have any other comments, questions, take it over to DawgsHQ. Our message board is there for you. $1 for 1 month if you want to access not just the board, but premium insight, premium analysis, news, nuggets, recruiting news. We had a lot on Georgia's visitor list that was here for this game, a big one, and they got to see a Dogs win in the rain. So not a perfect setting, not a perfect ball game, but Georgia does get the win. They are 3-0, and you got UAB coming up this week to get right, figure out some things, figure out who you are, and practice this week. Kirby said, he told Scott Howard on Georgia's radio crew, he said, we had a great week of practice. Tuesday was physical. We battled through the heat on Monday, but it doesn't mean we're going to play great. And he was right, because they didn't play great to start the game. And I still think if I had to grade the first half, it'd be like a C-. And if I had to grade the the second half would probably be about a B. I mean, I still think they left a lot out there on the field. Good news is you got the win, and you got a whole lot of season left to work on it. Kirby Smart says better never rests. Took a little while to wake up today, but once it did wake up, it didn't go to bed for a long time. And I don't think the fans in downtown Athens will be going to bed for a long time either. Y'all stay safe out there. Drive home safely if you're still hanging out in Athens. And have a good one. Dogs 1-0 in the SEC. And Tide struggles with South Florida. That's just a suggestion. You're up, you're able to do whatever you want there. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I imagine a lot of you will. 793 total yards given up in 3 games. Pretty good to me. Dogman with the glass half full analysis of this Georgia football team in 2023. We'll see where it goes from here. Lesson learned, or was it a lesson learned for Georgia's football team, or was it a lesson learned for us watching them? Did we learn who Georgia really is today? Team that can't play for 4 quarters, but is good enough to turn it on and beat most of the teams they'll play. A lot of schools would love that, but it's not going to win you a championship. You got to be able to put it together the whole time, and Georgia's got to grow up on that front. All in all, you get the win, 24-14, number 1 team in the country. Will they stay that way? Who knows? And I don't really care because it is still September. Y'all have a great weekend. Thanks for all your comments, questions in here. Get one more comment in here. JG says the only positive thing was the ability to come back down by 11. That's what I've been saying. Need a field goal kicker. Need players to come back from the injury list. Probably one of the better quarterbacks Georgia will see this season. I agree. Beck's got to grow up. He struggles mentally. I think that's what's always held him back. I don't know. I still think it's too early to tell a lot of this stuff. Not going to judge him just yet on 3 games. The signs are there, but 3 games does not a season make. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll catch you back here on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel, 8:30 p.m. Sunday night on the Georgia Show to break it all down. And back again with Bark After Dark, Mondays at 9. And then the Georgia Show again on Wednesday at 8:30. Y'all hit like and subscribe. Thanks for being a part of this, and hunker down.